Welcome to the Ambitious Sloth podcast. I'm Julian, and I interview people from all around the world about their mindsets, ambitions, and meaning in life for you so you can learn from them or just get a different perspective on things you haven't thought of before. Today's guest is Skylar Diehm. Skylar grew up obsessed with lifting weights. He used to lose weight and build confidence. In high school and college, he suffered from extreme social anxiety, but was always able to pull himself out through healthy habits. He loves everything about health, and his mission is to help men push harder and become better versions of themselves. So in this episode, we talked a lot about the mindset to act based on purpose, not on fear, and what immense power your thoughts have on your behavior and your general mood. So now let's start with the new episode and my guest, Skylar. Thank you for joining me for the new episode of the Ambitious Sloth podcast. Skylar is today my new guest, and I would like to he would like to introduce himself actually. So yeah, thank you for being here.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me, Julian. So my name's Skylar. I'm a men's weight loss coach, and oh man, like where to start? So I'm living in the States. I'm in Connecticut right now, and I'm currently just really, really obsessed with health and with the mind and the body and psychology and personal development. And really, like my goal is to spread that with other people. I made a huge transition in my own life from someone who was like, first and foremost, I was the meathead. I would go to the gym and I would just like clang weights, come home, eat chicken, broccoli, rice. And I went to that because at first I was extremely insecure. And eventually that kind of transitioned from, being a bodybuilder and really focusing on just how do I look to more how do I feel, like eating the foods that made me feel good as a person and diving more into the personal development world and developing the mind rather than, just trying to look good with my shirt off. So it's been like a big transition in terms of my overall consciousness and really just ability to focus on, where I want to focus, like the good, the bad, whatever. And it's been a transition that's been pretty life-changing and something that I'm looking to just share with other people. So
thank you for your first introduction. That was especially the point. I also read that before, the transition point from where you felt super insecure. And I think you also wrote on your website you were first a bit overweight, and that became then the starting point. I would like to go a bit into that. So where did you realize where was the point when you thought, okay, I need to change now? This is something I don't want to have anymore in my life. And how did that feel like?
Yeah. So like there's been two big transitions in my life. So the first was in middle school. I was a chubbier kid, and I transitioned from a private school to a public school. So I had to make all new friends. I had to meet everybody else and make like a complete transition. And it was a big culture shock, like coming from a very Christian school where, it's just completely different from going to that public school arena. But so I started to make friends. Like I was insecure, so I kind of struggled to feel like I fit in. But when I made my friends, they would always poke fun at me for being the chubby kid, as good friends do, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so basically I just turned to weightlifting. And that was like my first transition was, okay, if I am getting made fun of and like I don't like how I look, like I would be the kid with, the towel over my entire body during the pool party and like really insecure about that stuff. So I made that transition, started going to the gym more, and over a couple of years, like completely changed my body, right? And then the second big transition happened after I graduated college. So I was in college. I was basically really, really focused on just fitting in with people, with being, well-respected, well-liked. But that made me really, really anxious inside and feeling like I had to live up to other people's standards and like I had to be someone who I wasn't. And so I graduated college and I started my first full-time job, which then was an accountant. And I was in the position where I wasn't happy. I was going to work every day. I was working long, long hours. I was still like putting all my effort into the gym, and like I just wasn't really fulfilled as a person. And so I had this transition. It was really, really interesting where my daily schedule was the same every single day. It was literally wake up, go to work, come home from work, go to the gym, and then eat dinner and watch a little TV and then go to bed, like 5 days a week. And then the weekends would be a little bit different. And so the first change that I wanted to make was like, I want more free time after work. And so I tried to start waking up early before work, and it just didn't work out, right? I wanted to wake up. I wanted to go to the gym. I told myself I would do that. But whenever I woke up, the alarm would go off and I would just hit snooze. And then I would hit snooze again, and then I would go back to bed, right? So I got in this weird period where I wanted to do everything I could to go to the gym before work. But as soon as that alarm went off in the morning, it was like all bets were off. I was tired and I could go after work, right? Because there's always time after work. And basically, when I actually woke up, then the regret would come in and the guilt and the shame of like, why can't I do this? Why am I not good enough? And so I started diving into like some different books and different ways to get better sleep and how to avoid the snooze button. And honestly, from that point, like I just completely became obsessed with personal development and with developing the mind. And that was my second transition. It was literally just, I was in that spot where I wanted to make a change and I felt like I couldn't. And so I started figuring out why. Because I've always been like the driven kid, like obviously with being made fun of for being chubby, I always wanted to make a change in my body. If there was something where people told me I couldn't do it, I was always the person to go after and try to do it. But like the big transition did come internally when I wanted to do something and I felt like I couldn't. And then I basically made that huge transition. So those were the 2 points. I think really what inspired them was that dissatisfaction. Which is like, I feel extremely, extremely blessed to have that mindset because I know a lot of people don't, where they're dissatisfied with something. So instead they kind of just numb it out and they push it away. But it's been like it's been a huge blessing to be able to have those things that I'm dissatisfied with and like sit in that pain and then actually do something to make a change.
Yeah, I find it really cool that you get this external dissatisfaction or people pointing with the fingers at you, and then you turn this into, now I want to take action and do and change something about it. Because I also, it seems at least that quite a lot of people were then, because of that, turned down in a way that, okay, they already point the fingers all the time on me and I'm in the spotlight and I am feeling that bad. So that, as you also said, it makes you feel insecure, not worthy or not good enough. And then it seems at least that makes it become less likely that you actually go into action and actually start doing something. But this wasn't the case for you. Why do you think like this was maybe a bit different for you?
I think it's a couple of reasons. Number one, I had a great example of a father growing up in terms of work ethic. He was the guy that, I would go days without seeing him because I would wake up and he'd be on his way to work. And then I'd go to bed before he got home from work. Like he was just like working, trying to support our family. And he would still wake up at like 4 a.m. and get downstairs into the weight room and lift weights every day. So it was like, I saw the work ethic and he wasn't in the spot to like complain about it. Like I never, ever heard him complain about anything when I was a kid. And I think that really set the example of like, there's no excuse. You don't have an excuse for not being able to go after the things that you want. And like, I think my understanding of this has grown more over the years, but I still had that understanding of like, if something isn't where I want it to be, I can change it. Okay.
So basically, well, as I learned it, there's like 2 different mindsets with the growth and the fixed mindset from Carol Drake, an awesome book. You kind of learned the growth mindset from your dad from the beginning on, which made it a lot easier for you to take this step to, okay, I really don't like this, so I changed it.
Yeah.
So that helped you.
Yeah, and I think it was also some of my own development at times, like just being in those positions where I didn't like where I was. Like, I remember I had moments, I had some pretty bad anxiety in high school and college where I thought I was going to experience it for the rest of my life. But even at those points, I still tried to do other things to improve in other areas. So like the fuel was coming from a place of, unhappiness, which can be argued whether that's a good thing or not. But regardless of what you think about it, like, that fuel drove me to make those changes.
Yeah. Actually for me, it was not the case being pointed at school, but I was somehow thinking myself, well, I didn't have good grades in school in the beginning. So that led me then to thinking I was not smart enough for this high school I was going to. And I had then, that's actually similar. I had this similar experience of, since I'm not worthy enough or I'm too stupid for this, I then also shut down myself in the beginning of like, okay, I don't even have to try, in a sense. And for me, it was maybe also because, you said that change or some change also occurred because you changed the school. And for me, it was when then the high school was over, there happened for me the huge change, because I could go out of the usual environment, the usual social interactions, which kind of, at least it seemed to me, that kind of still pushed you into a certain role you were playing before. So it made you harder to change for yourself, or at least that others accept that you change. And did you experience that in a similar way, or like that when the social environment is changing, that it makes it easier for you to change?
Yeah, absolutely. Your environment plays like such a huge factor into who you are. And I just think for me personally, that huge transition, like for people, for you, like, that's a huge transition to be in high school to being an adult where you're on your own. And if you're going to college, like, you're responsible for your schedule. For other people, like, they make that change and they still live in that same mindset of like the high school mindset. Like, I have responsibilities that I have to do, and that's kind of the minimum. And then, whatever else I feel like I have to do and I'm forced to do, I'll do. But when you are making that transition, there are those times where it's a culture shock and you're forced to adapt. And in that journey of being pushed to adapt to something new, you discover something about yourself, or you try something new, or some component comes into play that sparks that transition and allows you to really make that change in your life.
Yeah, I also definitely felt that. Now I actually wanted to dive deep immediately into the things you mentioned in your introduction without the question I even told you I was going to ask before. So whether you think you are more like the gut person that just decides on the spot, or like an overthinker and think constantly about stuff before you decided to do it. Yeah.
So I'm in that transition right now. So my entire life, I've been the logical person, overthinking. If my heart told me something, I would talk myself out of it. And I'm slowly learning to focus more on the heart, because just in the past few years, like, what I've experienced is the things that I feel are best have pushed me in the best direction. Like, if I was still logical, I wouldn't have quit my accounting job. I would still be in that office right now. But it was just like, I'm not meant for that. And because of that decision and the hundreds that followed after, where, my heart was telling me something, it's pushing me more and more to make decisions based on not logic, but more like emotional reasons. Now, with that being said, I still get in my head a lot and I still think about stuff. So it's really difficult at times to make that, but it's happening. Like, I know that if I want to end up where I want to end up, I have to be making decisions based on the heart.
That's cool. Actually, that's essentially the reason why I wanted to start this, like, make the official quit from the first season and start now the second season of the podcast, because I had the similar feeling of before. I was super going towards techniques and tactics other people were telling me, or like I could learn from other people, rather than listening to my own voice, to myself. Because it's really awesome, all the techniques other people developed, but they're most often not fit for myself. And to really learning how to actually listen to that voice or to the heart or however this is called, basically, that is, at least for me, it seems like also really hard to learn, because I use tons of hours of meditation for that, in order to really dive deep into that and to make this voice louder somehow, to really also feel that during the one-on-one connections I have with other people, like not thinking about, okay, what behavior are they doing, or like, do this person like me or not, or just how does it feel for you to be with that person? What does the person make you feel? And that's most certainly also then the thing you make the other person feel like. And so this was just a funny coincidence that I'm doing that at the same time, basically, also.
Yeah, and it's tough. Like it's not easy, especially if you've been doing it for, 20, 25 years of your life. Like,
it's like you're giving up control, because before you thought about everything beforehand, and now it's like, okay, I just wait and see how it feels.
Yeah. And then that little voice is like, no, we have to think about it. But yeah, it's a lot of practice.
And you would say you have come like quite a way now already, like practicing this in a direction. How are you like practicing that, and what are maybe some things you learned along the way?
Yeah. So I'd say over the past 2 years, I've made the biggest mindset transformation in my life. That's like an absolute fact. And it has been all the self work that I put in. Because like from age, I'd say 14 until now, I've been heavily obsessed with the gym, lifting weights, but even pushing myself mentally in the gym and physically hasn't made as big a transition as it has the past 2 years. And so like what I've really been doing is taking more time for myself on a daily basis, but not in the sense of, I'm going to kick my feet up and watch the next show on Netflix. More on like, I'm going to face some thoughts. I'm going to start to take time to work my mind, to work through stuff, whatever exercises that is, whether that's meditation, gratitude, affirmations, like anything like that. But it's been the consistency of waking up early, having a morning routine and having a nighttime routine, and doing that stuff every single day. So,
this has made the biggest change, the morning routine and evening routines.
Yeah. I mean, I had a company called Early Risers, and I have the Early Risers podcast, which is doing a rebranding soon. And like the whole idea is, for our entire day, everything's a mess, right? We have responsibilities, we have things coming up, like everything is sporadic, and a lot of us are just going through the motions, and we're going with the flow of the day. But the time in the morning and the evening is time that you can always take to yourself. Like no matter what you do, the last however long, whether it wants to be 5 minutes or an hour of your day, and then the first 5 minutes to an hour to 2 hours, like that's your time. Other people are sleeping. Other people don't expect you to show up at work. Like if you can make that extra time, that's your consistency right there. And with that consistency, that's where growth comes from, and that's where change is going to come from.
So you, since how long are you have been doing that now? You said like 2 years the change has come.
Yeah, so it's been about 3 years since officially starting the whole morning routine and nighttime routine thing. And then like really understanding it and really getting more into it is like 2 to 2.5 years.
Yeah, and what are like maybe some thoughts that came up that you didn't expect, or something that you would say this digging into that made you at some point a bit uncomfortable, because not all the thoughts that we all the time push away is like our nice thoughts, and so when we stop doing that, some things come up again, and we have to face them.
Yeah, I think the biggest one has been this idea of like not being good enough. And I know so many people out there experience these thoughts because like a ton of different reasons, from their upbringing to how Instagram just like highlights the perfection of other people's lives. But that's been the biggest one that I've come in contact with, and it's something that I've definitely gotten rid of a lot of it. But obviously, like, there's never really perfection in that area if you've experienced it. So I'm still working through that stuff. I've taken massive leaps, but I think that understanding has allowed me to really put different things into perspective. Because once you come from a place where you kind of understand the reasoning behind why you think that, in certain situations when that stuff comes up, you can address it. You can understand, okay, why is this happening? You can analyze it. And then when you analyze it, you have like a different perspective from it.
Yeah, and as I figured, right, that your feeling of that came through through your teenager years where you were chubby in the high school, or is that right?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a mix of my childhood and that, and even growing up. Like, I think once you are in that mindset, you kind of look for reasons to prove yourself right. So like, if you think like I'm not good enough, and then you come in contact with someone and they for some reason don't like you, like you're just being your genuine self and they don't like you, it's like, I was right all along. Like, that's my proof right there. And even you have hundreds of loving people around you who love and care for you, but like, all you can focus on is that one person. It's like, I was right. There's my proof. That's all I need. So even too, like, understanding that and coming from a place of, okay, let's focus less on the people who don't like me, because it's ridiculous to think that no one's ever not going to like you, just based on all perspectives and everything like that. So coming from a place of that, and then shifting your focus to the people who do love you and who do care for you. And when you do that, you kind of, you understand, like, look, I'm being my genuine self with them and they love me. So of course I'm good enough. I don't have to be perfect. Like, I don't have to do everything right. And I think a big reason too of why I've been so ambitious with this stuff, it stemmed from that feeling. And in a way, like, it is a blessing. Like, when you feel like that, and rather than numbing yourself, you push yourself more, like, that allows you to pursue other things. And obviously that's not a mindset you want to stay in for your entire life. Obviously that's something you want to work through, but like, I'm big on focusing on the good. I'm big on focusing on like what good came from that, what good is coming from it, rather than putting all of that energy and focus into the bad side of things.
So basically really taking the control over your thoughts and directing them towards something you really know it's good for you in the long run, especially when you see, okay, those thoughts from early on came back, and I'm not good enough because this person didn't like me for the color of my hair or whatever reason, and then really focusing, okay, what do the most loving people say about me? What can I give them? What value do I have, just based on your inner circle, basically, is the thing that helped you the most with that.
Yeah, definitely that. And I think realizing that, like, perfection is never going to happen. And just because you're not perfect, it doesn't mean you're any less of a person. It means you're more of a person. So, I mean, yeah. Enough said, right?
Yes. I don't have anything to add to that. However, you already mentioned perfect. That leads me to, what would your perfect day look like? If you could do anything you wanted, have no responsibilities whatsoever, what would be the thing, or what would be the things you want to do?
Yeah. So I'd wake up early, of course. I'd do my full morning routine. Yeah. It'd be a really good day at the gym. I'd go through everything with like full intention. And I just have the whole day obviously ahead of me. And, I'd spend a lot of the time out in nature. I'm a big nature guy. I love hiking. I love literally just taking walks. Just being outside is refreshing and super helpful for me. I'd spend time with my girlfriend a lot. We've got a great relationship going. I'd spend time with my friends too. Like, I just love the company of other people. Like, when I'm alone, I love it, and I love doing hard work. And I'm more of an introvert. but I still do have those group of friends and those people who I just like, I love being around, and they're people who want the best for me, and they're there to push me. Um, I would also like to go to the beach. I'm a big beach guy.
Hiking
Yeah.
and beach at the same time.
Yeah. I got to
That's
find a
interesting.
spot where that's possible.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, I'm also a big food buff, so I'm sure I'd have a couple of delicious meals in there, and would end the night just relaxing and then doing my nighttime routine and reading a good book.
Actually pretty chill. If you could choose anything you could, or you would choose those things what you do most of the time, as I recognize, right?
Yeah, I've got a pretty good thing going. I mean, obviously, if I had more time, I would do traveling and all that stuff. But I feel like there's not much that you can fit in one day if you want to travel across the world.
It's a start with one day. Yeah.
Yeah.
And speaking of traveling, where would you go if you could choose anywhere?
Machu Picchu. It's
I
know that's fast. Yeah. So it's been on my list for a while, and I'm gonna make it happen next year or the year after. But I'm really, really fascinated with that stuff, like the history of, how did these people from long, long ago, how did they carve out these rocks to perfectly fit together and create this beautiful city and get it in a spot where it's like so far away from anything, and the mountains are like insane. So just going there, and I'm a big a big nature buff, and I want to do a hike there. They have like a couple day hike where you hike and then you camp out, and then you hike, you camp out, and then eventually you make it there. And that's been on my list just because it's gorgeous, and it would just, the overall experience would be really, honestly, just mind blowing.
Well, I haven't been there, but I could assume that's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
And, well, you already said that your perfect day would look pretty similar to what you've been doing so far. Would anything change if you get the message that you only have 6 months to live?
That's a great question. I feel like I'd have to like really think about that, because, man, I'm just super grateful and content for doing the stuff that I do. Like, I don't know if that would change anything, because honestly, I think, like, obviously I would want to experience more new things and try new adventures. So I'm sure I would throw in some more like really ambitious stuff there. But I don't even know what it would be. Like skydiving, I would love to do, and I'm definitely going to do that.
You should. That's something.
You've been skydiving. Yeah. I've heard from people who do it. It's life changing. Like, not even the experience itself, but just what you learn from the experience. But yeah, I mean, it sounds like ridiculous, but that to me is just a super fulfilling day.
That's really cool.
What would you do?
Well, since I think I would do skydiving again, because it was really, really cool experience. But to be honest, throughout the probably then last 6 months of my life, I would spend as much as possible with like the loved ones I have around me, and still go for like travels on my own. So have this really on two opposite scales, almost like really appreciating the loved ones I have around myself right now, and still going on super extreme adventures I haven't been, maybe because I was scared, maybe because I thought I can do this later. So I think I would also do ayahuasca, to be honest, this is somewhat, it's really attracting because it has so much potential to go into depth, to really get to know yourself. And I would probably regret if I wouldn't do this. Yeah,
that's a great answer. I'm going to add that to mine too. That's been something I've been thinking about a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah,
have
because
you,
I have buddies who they've gone to like because they have retreat centers where they kind of just guide you through everything.
hmm
And I've had buddies who've done it and they said it's life changing. And I'm like just getting more into the psychedelics and understanding. Not even like I'm gonna do it and I'm just gonna have a crazy trip. Like it is more about understanding new things about yourself and about the world and really digging more into that. So yeah, just hearing the perspective of the people who've done it is it's really really it's interesting, it's enticing.
did you have any psychedelic experiences?
Not yet.
Well, to be honest, I feel like the first one I did have was through meditation. Well, it was not induced through psychedelics, but still a psychedelic experience. Since I've been to Nepal into the Vipassana meditation retreat, there at some point it was just so intensely into depth, and then there was also like a lot of pain involved because of sitting for like 10 hours a day. And then at some point, my body said, I can't bear this pain anymore. And so I went out of my body to see the pain from the outside and didn't feel it anymore. And I feel that was the first psychedelic experience I had, just induced through meditation. So I don't
That
think
sounds incredible.
that only through psychedelics you can get there, but then also later on, it was actually a similar experience to magic mushrooms. I could almost compare those two. Well, the mushrooms were a bit more intense, to be honest, and more obviously more things going on, but they were relatable. So it was not too crazy that I was completely thrown off to something I haven't done before, because I had some trust in myself through the meditation already. So that was interesting, and I didn't expect that, to be honest, that they were so similar.
Yeah, that really is. I have a buddy who I had him on my podcast and we talked about his experience he did was it the 10-day retreat you did?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I had a conversation with him about it, and he said exactly what you said pretty much. Like he was in excruciating pain, and then the guys basically walked him through a meditation and he was able to just shut it off.
Yeah.
And it's mind-blowing stuff. Like we don't really know what our mind is truly capable of, and like I want to figure it out, you know.
Yeah, to be honest, also at some point during the the 7th or 8th day, your mind gets so calm and not distracted by all the thoughts running through your head that for like an hour intense thinking about super deep topics and important questions were not a problem, whereas now after 2 minutes you're distracted by all the things going on around you. So
Yeah,
even that was mind-blowing, how capable we are of thinking, how concentrated we can be for such a long period of time, and we're just not used to that anymore. So that was already interesting to see the actual power of our minds.
it's crazy.
Yeah, so to be honest, if anybody feels right for doing like a 10-day meditation retreat, I would suggest it.
Yeah.
This to date is, I think, still the most changing experience I had so far. So that's, wow. Yeah.
Okay, I'm adding that if I had 6 months. It's gonna happen. So
yeah. So yeah, that was for me the biggest moment so far, to be honest. Yeah. Do you have any moment going in this direction where you said, okay, from that moment on, I was like changed and different? Like, or was it most of the time a longer transition?
I had a couple. I think a couple moments just came from comfort zone moments where it was like I had a decision. I could act based on fear, or I could act based on purpose.
Okay.
And like something just drove me to act based on purpose. So like the first one that comes to mind was I joined my high school wrestling team. That like just that decision to walk in a locker room full of like very intimidating guys who were really just aggressive. That was life changing because I was able to join the wrestling team, and it taught me so much about self-discipline and like your body and your mind. And that was kind of something that drove me in this direction. I think the other biggest thing was including, so basically I have a coach that I work with right now, and going through his program was also like, there were a couple moments where I was like, okay, I'm never going to be the same. Just learning more about the mind and learning more about mindset and energy and intention and everything that kind of drives you in a certain direction. It's like, I don't obviously see the change in that moment, but that's the moment where things completely change, is when you have that, like that new understanding, or you make that decision.
Yeah. Yeah, especially I guess for you being this kid in high school, then going into such a locker room with those dudes is probably especially intense and interesting.
Yeah. And I was not the extrovert. I was super introverted, and I, like, I had that example of my dad, but I hadn't been practicing it to the fullest yet. Like, I was going to the gym, but I was being super inconsistent at that point, and basically just joining that. And we had a lot of intense practices. We had one practice just to share, where one of our guys like messed with another guy's locker, and our coach was angry, and he put us through, I think it was like an hour and a half or 2 hours of bear crawls. Just like, we had two guys and two groups of guys, and the first group would go to one wall and go back, and then the second group, and it was just nonstop. And that was one of those moments where you look back and you say, okay, like, we're a lot more capable than we think we are. Because after 30 minutes, I was done. But we had the coach pushing us, we had accountability, and like, we were able to just keep going through that.
Yeah, that's really like, I still like sometimes want to push this border really from like, I think I can't move on anymore, but like, where is the definite border from your physical exhaustion that you actually cannot overcross? And at some point I wasn't working out that much anymore, also not going for runs. And then at some point I was like seeing other people going around the track and trace field, and was just like, I want to run again. And why not try to incorporate the mindset game in this? What if I now, without training, go after half a marathon? Interesting what then happens. Yeah. Like, your mind starts, no, you can't do this. This is usually not the thing you should do. Your body gets hurt and stuff like that. But if you then actually do that, you'll figure it works. I actually can do that. I had a bit of pain the next 2-3 days, of course, yes. But it was not as bad as all the thoughts beforehand told me. And like, that's incredible how much our brain is holding us, or well, it tries to keep us alive. So that from this perspective, it's doing an amazing job. But it's not really helping us to really figure out, okay, where are the borders? What can we do? What is the thing that makes us most happy? And those kind of things. It's maybe not the best thing to just really follow what the thoughts are telling you. To
that heart?
Yeah, exactly. That's to be honest, that is a thing that I in the past month probably looked the most at. I also like listening to yourself, trusting your beliefs. Those kind of things were the stuff I was looking on the most. I really focusing, okay, what is the intention I want to put on the world, and how can I get there? Rather than, okay, what if I put this out? What is the maybe what are the thoughts other people would think about this? So yeah, and maybe in this context, I really like to ask you, what would you like to be remembered for when you die?
Yeah, that is a great question. I think the biggest thing is, living fearlessly. And it's like, no one truly lives fearlessly, obviously, but I want to be remembered as the guy who went for it, who didn't act based on fear, but who acted regardless of fear. who I've thought about this a lot, and I want to set the example for other people, just because, especially in our society, like our current generation, we are so conditioned from childhood and from everything going on around us to just do the easy thing and to fit in and to go to work. And, you're not happy, but you got to do it anyway. So keep doing it and slowly get more unhappy. And like, it's a really, really bad downward spiral. And I have a lot of friends who are going through it. Like they go to their office job and they hate it, but they go because they feel like they have to and they're scared of doing anything else. And one of the big things I want to do, like with starting this business and with making these things happen, is really just help people understand, like, you don't have to do things that society tells you to do. You don't have to do them the way that you think you have to do them. And we ultimately are like the creators of our life. And by setting that example myself and creating a successful life, I can also set that example for other people.
Can you dig a bit deeper into we're the creator of our life? How did you get into this direction, and what do you exactly mean by that?
Yeah, so ultimately, like you open your ears and everyone around you is saying, I have to do this, I have to do this, I have to do. But it's like you ultimately choose to do that. Like you don't have to pay taxes. You choose to pay taxes because you don't want the IRS coming after you. You don't have to go to your office job. You choose to go to your office job because, you're scared of what would happen if you didn't, of starting your own business, of going and finding another job. And so like ultimately so many people have that word like can't or I'll try or something like that. But it's like, at the end of the day, every single decision is your own. And if you think about that, how every single decision is up to you, you can take your life in any direction that you want it to. Mm-hmm. And I know there's people out there who like, they're thinking like, well, yeah, but I have this certain situation and society placed this chain on me. But like you look at a guy, do you know Nick Santanasso, I think you say his name?
No, I actually don't.
So he was born and he had no limbs, and he has no legs. He has 2 arms, but they're both stubs. And he's a bodybuilder at the gym. Like he is a speaker. He speaks in front of hundreds of thousands of people. And like you have someone who's doing so much in that position. Yeah. It's like, why are you using your upbringing or, how much money you had when you were a kid or how much money you have now? Why are you using that as an excuse to have someone else dictate how you live? And so like with we are the creator of our world, I mean, like we make the decisions that ultimately allow us to end up in a certain place. And like things aren't going to end up as you always want them to, but the reality is like we can make the decisions to push us more towards that dream life rather than falling back into fear and doing life how we think we're supposed to.
Yeah, and in this context, also another thought popped into my mind from another podcast guest I had before, that she was saying that for her, everything is triggered by either love or fear. What do you think about that?
I like that sentiment a lot. I think that in certain situations, it could be considered love. I like that. I like that a lot. Like in certain situations when you are scared, you make the other decision out of love for yourself or those around you. Mm-hmm. I think my head wraps more around like the idea of purpose, of knowing like this is what you want and you're going to go after it. But yeah, love works. I like that.
Yeah, to be honest, most of the time you try to find, or we have a bunch of words of maybe also jealousy, of things, of insecurities, but it seems that most things are related to either then the fear of getting, of losing something, of not getting something, of changing your status quo or anything in this realm. And the other hand is like you do most of the things, or at least as you said, you do a lot of things because you are this purpose-driven person and you want to inspire other people. This seems to be out of love to other people and yourself. So I'm not sure where I wanted to go with this explanation, but I do enjoy it too.
I have a question for you, actually. Yeah. this may open up a whole new conversation.
Sure.
And stop me if you don't want to answer or something. But so I've been thinking a lot about, so say you're this guy, right? And you go out and you are just doing so much good in the world. Like you're giving back, you're going to homeless shelters, you're doing everything you can, right? Is there a difference in doing that on one end because you want to give back to the world and it's because it's out of love, versus on the other end, you feel like you're required to do that and you want other people to look at you as a good person? Like same result, you're going out, you're doing these good things, but do you think there's a difference based on your intention?
I think there is a difference, especially because since well, we are now both focused more about on the emotional part, is that you feel the person, or you as the receiver feel a difference in how genuine the person is, how much actual love they're put in there. And for me, it seems right now almost more important with the intention, with the love you want to give to others, that this has a greater effect actually than the maybe material things you put out there. Since I do believe now more in the realm of that, with the intention and your inner core, that you send out this kind of energy, you send out this love, and this is also what you get back. So I feel also that the person will in the long run have more and get more when the intention is set on love rather than I kind of have to do this.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I completely agree. I think so. Like I said, I've been thinking about it a lot and I couldn't really put into words why I felt that way. But that's a really good explanation. Like the intention ultimately matters. Like it's that energy, that's that intention. And it's the same outcome, but like me doing everything because I feel like I'm not good enough versus me doing everything because I want to love the life that I live. Like, yeah, I'm still doing everything that I do, but it's from a different place. And I agree with what you said.
And I also don't think you can sustain that for such a long time with the same intensity. And people feel when you're not genuine. People feel when you don't put really all your love in there. And so even though it seems from the outside, maybe the achievements or what you do is the same thing, but it's not.
Yeah.
It's not the same thing as if you really out of the true inner purpose that you want to spread the love you have of yourself and help the other people. That is not the same thing as that you feel you have to for some reason. It's just a different feeling. It's hard to explain in words, but for me, it's a huge difference. Yes.
I agree.
I do have another question, which is basically, well, we talked a lot about how your life is right now and how you would change it, or rather not actually. How would you see yourself then in 5 years if your goals were reached, let's say?
Yeah, I mean, I'd still be striving for more. I have this poster behind me I don't know if you put this out on video, but it says always grateful, never satisfied. And that's kind of like, that's how I want to live life. Like in every present moment, always being grateful for everything I have, always being grateful for the struggles I have, the good, the bad, but also never being satisfied, meaning that, not meaning like I'm always dissatisfied and always grumpy about it and always wanting more and never feeling like I'm enough, but like always pushing towards something better. Like never becoming satisfied where I am, because ultimately that satisfaction leads to complacency, which leads to you falling back into something worse. So like that's a big thing is in 5 years, I'm going to meet all the goals that I have set right now, but I'm going to have more goals that I'm going after, and like never feeling like, okay, I'm good in my relationships, I'm good with my business, I'm good with my health. So I'm going to chill. I'm going to coast. But in terms of that, like I want to create a six-figure business, a multi-six-figure business. I want to be living in my dream state, which I don't know what it is yet. I want to figure that out. And in terms of like actual location
Yeah,
state.
yeah.
And I just want to feel amazing. I think it like a lot that we talked about today is that feeling. And I want to be, making decisions based on intuition, based on my heart instead of my brain. And I want to be in a place where like I can look at my life and be like, okay, I put in the work for this. I deserve this. This is amazing.
Can you describe that feeling? Maybe I know it's super hard to describe feelings, but a bit more in detail. So you like actually have like can describe it in your body how that feels, or because it's super hard to when you say you want to feel I worked for this, but how does that feel for you?
Yeah. So number one, no guilt or no regrets of anything I've done in the past. Coming from a place of I lived my truth as much as I could. So like not looking back and saying, well, yeah, like last year I could have done this better. I could have done this better. But like knowing that in the very moment that I'm in, I'm doing the best I can. That's a big one. And I think obviously feeling healthy, like just being in a state of energy and excitement and gratitude. That's a tough question besides those two. Like I think with feelings, it's just you have that satisfaction. Like looking back and knowing that all the bad things you went through and all the good things you went through led you to this moment, which is beautiful.
That's a lot more vivid.
Yeah.
That's cool. Then we're getting a bit closer to the end. I think we already have, what is it? Almost an hour.
Yeah.
So I still have a couple of more questions. One is feel a bit broader that I recently picked up in another podcast, in the after talk actually. And we came to the thing that, okay, what if now everything that you own, what you established yourself, what you earned so far, like any material things that you already accomplished, what if those would be gone? Who would you be?
I really like to think I'd be exactly who I am now. I do. I think like I've developed a mindset where, I'm grateful for the present. Like I'm going through my own struggles as everyone else is. Mm-hmm. And it's like, even if everything I have was taken away, number one, I'd still have the people around me, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, if I have the people around me supporting me, if I have people who are rooting for me, like that's most of the battle right there. Mm-hmm. And I think I would just be able to, I would probably have some bad moments, some tough moments, but I'd still be able to get back on the horse. I'd still be able to push forward, and I'd still be able to create this and then some. Yeah.
And actually just remembered another question I wrote down while I was watching your podcast with your girlfriend. You said you wrote down about 70 question cards that you ask yourself at certain locations. What of those was the most difficult for you to answer?
Oh, that's a great question. All right. Man. So I think the most difficult was having to do with the future. So just for some context, so right now I've been dating my girlfriend it's been like a little over a year and a couple months. And we've established like a really strong relationship, like open, honest, all that stuff. And when we started doing this question stuff, it was very early in the relationship. Like it was a couple months. And I hadn't fully like opened all of myself up to her. Like I still kind of had like a small little wall. And one of the questions that came up was about the future and about like, where do you see us in 5 years or something like that? And like, I couldn't say that I would, like, the answer that I gave was basically like, I don't know. Like, I can't guarantee anything in 5 years. And that was tough to work through just because, when you're dating someone, you want to hear that they're all in.
Yeah.
And like, I wasn't in the spot where I was ready to say that. Like, I've had relationship struggles in the past that have closed me off to stuff like that. and being able to, like, having to say that to her was tough. And then of course the conversation that it provoked was pretty tough. But I will say it was also super helpful because it helped me open up even more. Because then, like, once you realize the answer, we can go into, okay, well, why do I feel that way? Why do I think that way? Yeah. Does that help?
Well, it's definitely super honest, and like you put yourself really vulnerable now. So it's awesome that you share that, because it was obviously, it obviously is not the biggest fear for yourself anymore. So to
Right.
have the future lookouts with your girlfriend, and so it seems like a super tough question indeed. Well, 5 years for a relationship that just started is also really tough to answer, because.
So yeah, so to give you some context too, like,
Sure.
It wasn't like a high school relationship. Like we got pretty serious pretty fast. Like we both clicked very, very well, and we realized like this is something that it's gonna work.
Mm-hmm.
But there was still like that thought in the back of my mind, like, well, I've had stuff in the past that has kind of felt like this, and that ended in disaster. So like, I don't know. But yeah, I mean, obviously confronting that was one of the best things that happened.
And would you then say, like, confronting most of the fears you have is a really good decision? Because I assume in those 70 cards is a lot of fears get spoken about, and you obviously those questions are not like, yeah, what's your favorite meal, as your girlfriend said. Like, that's what you say. This really helped you in the cause of like your relationship, but I guess also your self-development.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's a great rule of thumb in general. Like, face those fears, because there's nothing but good things on the other side if you face them.
Because that is the thing that most of the people get in their head, obviously including me. Like, when I need to go into this depth, into the fears, the thing that's holding you back is you assume something bad is at the end or is somewhere there, but you haven't made any experiences that really push you towards, yeah, I should not like really go deep.
Yeah. I think you mean just in general.
Yeah, just in general.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that every single situation where fear has come up, there's always been something good on the other side. Now, there's been a ton of situations where I haven't pushed past that fear, like a ton. Like I haven't always acted based on purpose, but every single time where I have, even if that moment sucked, after it was always good things.
And we talked previously also, sorry to jump back, but I had just a question that I wanted to ask again. We talked about like you said like the energy that is around us, and we put the energy out there, and this is quite an important part. Is that for you also like a spiritual thinking that you have, that there is some energy or greater energy out there that you feel connected with, or are you quite religious? I'm not sure about that. So can you let me know a bit more about that?
Definitely. So context. So I grew up in a very, very religious household, very Christian.
Mm-hmm.
And like, there's a lot of things about the way I was raised that I absolutely don't agree with, but there's a lot of things that I see the same side of and that I absolutely believe in. So where I am now on my spiritual journey, like, I am well aware that there is something bigger than me out there. And I'm well aware about different laws of the universe, of how things happen. And I am a true believer that like what you put out into the world is going to come back to you, whether you call it karma, the law of attraction, law of vibration, whatever you want to call it. Like, it's from my experience and from hearing everyone around me, it's just a fact of life. It's a law. But in terms of like actually defining things, like whether I believe the universe, whether I believe Jesus, like anything along those lines, I'm working through it right now. Like, that's one of the things I'm going through.
That's
and I don't know if I don't know if that'll ever be solved because, like, as much as people want to say, well, we know for a fact this XYZ, we don't. We don't. Like, there's always differing opinions. There's always different viewpoints. And I think, like, if I were to go, sometimes I feel this way. Like, if I were to go all in on something and fully believe something, that would kind of take away from, like, the openness of life, of like understanding different perspectives and possibilities. Because I know a lot of religious people who are very, very close-minded, and like you could tell them something that could change their life in the best way possible, and because it's not in alignment with what they've accepted as a fact, they won't let it change them.
Mm.
So it's interesting. Religion's something that I could go on for about like hours, and it's a conversation that I always like having. But it's something that will always be. I really think it's something I'm always going to be working through.
I mean, it is super huge, and I was also well, not super strictly religious, but also Catholic. And now, since I have also like traveled through the Philippines, to Hong Kong, and Nepal, it's like three completely different worlds, especially also religious wise. And after that, I was just like, no, well, I don't want to call it confused, but just like an overload of new information from perspectives, and that obviously just showed that there is not the one right way to think, believe, do stuff. So you really, there again, you have to like what feels the most connected to you, or feels the most right to you. And I feel also most of them say similar things, but just like different words, different starting points, different contexts. And that makes each religion unique in itself, but on the same side also like overlapping a lot with each other. So again, as you said, like topic for hours, but this is just like the notion I've gotten so far. But since I've been doing those travels, I was like, I also need to dig deeper into that, because that is just super. Also, I feel like it's super interesting topic for a lot of growth. So it's not that, because then, as you said, when you're open for something like that, you are willing to explore a lot about yourself, but also like your beliefs, your thinking, once you like see those different perspectives.
Absolutely. And there's always going to be kind of principles I live by, of course.
Sure.
And there's always like there's always different thoughts popping into my head of like, okay, well, this right here means that this is probably true, but then like this pops up over here, which means like this other thing is true.
Yeah.
And like it is a tough thing to deal with, but I think overall, like you said, like if you have those principles that you live by, you're going to figure it out.
Yeah. And to be honest, there in at least the past few months, the leading theme or topic I would really put on on it is really listen to yourself. That is just almost the most, for me at least, appropriate way to go somewhere, to go through stuff. Because I also, if I need to have more information, I know that I need to get more information about it. It's not that I only listen to like your intuition or something, but also it tells you more specific, almost like what do you need to do. So it's also quite interesting. I think, to be honest, I also don't want to take too much of your time. And I have two last questions for that. So one is, if you could choose any superpower that you could imagine, which one would you choose?
That's a great question. I think it would be teleporting. I think just based on like what that would allow me to do in life, like in a second I could be in Machu Picchu. And then in another second, I could skip traffic and end up at like a smoothie store, like something ridiculous, right? But I think teleportation would open up the most opportunities for me.
I actually thought the exact same thing. However, then I had an interview with Max Elsa, and he said, like, I want to fly, because there you can experience the whole journey and not just the end result. So flying is also a great journey.
That is really good. But at the same time, I think that that constricts you from experiencing a lot of things, because you, like, if I wanted to go to Peru, I would have to fly, and however long that takes, like 12 hours, 13 hours.
Sure, depending on like how fast you can fly. I mean,
Right,
maybe
yeah.
you need to like put that a bit more specific, but yeah, if you like fly
And if
there
I'm
in an
like
hour or something,
Superman,
yeah.
if I'm Superman, I can get there in like 5 seconds, maybe. Yeah, I do flying.
So that was also an interesting thought. I like, that's why I also changed my teleportation superpower to a flying superpower.
Nice.
And then I have a question for the podcast is, after now we had the super deep discussion over religion, energy, your fears, your relationship, a bunch of different things, but super into depth. Who would you think would be a suited next guest for me?
Oh, I like that. I think one of my good buddies, name's Brett Gonzabach. He was on my podcast. He's the one that also went through the 10-day meditation retreat. He's done a lot of things to push his mind and his body. He's done, like, he did a full marathon without training. Kind of like you, like he's the guy.
I do that too.
Yeah. He's the guy to talk to in terms of just like consciousness and to get into really deep stuff. Like, he's done the ayahuasca retreat and all that stuff. So I'd love to connect you guys.
Yeah, would be awesome. I'm
cool.
Intrigued by the Vipassana marathon ayahuasca. I'm in.
Yeah.
And I also know you wrote a book, which is super helpful for those who always step on the snooze button.
Yeah.
So you want to briefly say something about that and where people can find you?
Yeah. So the book's called The Snooze Stopper. It's something that as I've made my transition with my company, I haven't pushed it as much, but it's still there. Basically, in my own journey, like I mentioned, like, I was a snooze addict. Like, no matter how many times I tried, I could not seem to get out of bed on that first alarm. And like, the whole concept behind the book is, number one, why that's so important. Like, if you, at the very first moment of the day, you get that win and you get up on your first alarm, that opens up so many opportunities. Like, to someone who hasn't really been through this stuff before, it kind of sounds ridiculous. Like, how can that change your life? But like, how you do one thing is how you do everything. And if you can start your first moment of your day, like that very, very first moment, with a win, that win can snowball to a million other wins. And that kind of acts as like the anchor of helping you push even more every day. So the book is on like a little bit about that, a little bit about why snooze affects you physically, like how it actually makes you more tired physically, the science behind that. And then I also go into like a ton of different tools and tactics that I've used to stop pressing the snooze button, because it was not easy. I'd had times where like I put one alarm across my room, one alarm down the hall, and I would have to like get up and turn the first alarm and then the second alarm. And it was just like this battle where every day I'd have to adapt and adjust to try to get out of bed. And then over time it built into a habit. So that's available. Reach out to me directly if you want a link to that, because I don't think the link is anywhere online. But if you're looking to connect with me, I'm available at The Unchained Self on Instagram. So I'm break the chains of society, step into your true purpose. And then my current website is earlyrisersmovement.com, but that may be changing soon. So your best bet is to head over to The Unchained Self on Instagram and reach out, hit me up, say hi, tell me what you thought about the podcast. I like talking about this stuff.
Awesome. Thanks a lot. I think we've covered a bunch of stuff, and I'm really, really acknowledging how much you shared and like how vulnerable you actually have been now on the podcast. And so really thank you for doing this in your time.
Yeah. And I appreciate you too, Julian. Like, it takes good questions to get good answers out of people. So I respect what you're doing, and I appreciate the good questions as well.
Thank you so much for listening until the end of this episode. My personal takeaway from this was the quotes act based on purpose, not on fear. Since it's often the case that I don't do things because it's scary and I forgot about my purpose. So a great insight and reminder of this. If you want to know more about Skylar, what he does, and or get in contact with him, you could check out his Facebook group, Early Risers Movement, his Instagram channel, The Unchanged Self, or his website, The Early Risers Movement. One last thing, if you enjoyed this episode or got a new perspective on something, I would really appreciate if you subscribe or leave me a review on iTunes so I know what I'm doing and I can improve it. And I also see a bit of support from you to keep going. That would be awesome. So have a nice day and namaste.